right, here we go. Day one of first interview. Better take my sunnies off, just check I've got no toothpaste around my mouth. It is a hot day in summer in Bellingen, and I am just getting ready to record an interview with Lttle Kng. So I've got my mics ready, I've got my dinner ready, so we're going to do a bit of a dinner. I'll cook him dinner while I interview him, bit of studio tour. I think all the technology is sorted, and I've given myself just enough time to get a couple of ingredients and some beverages to go with dinner. We're going to be having a Thai chicken larb, courtesy of Marion's Kitchen. Missing a few ingredients, a little bit of a simplified version. Off to a good start there. Already recording in portrait instead of landscape. Finally here, interview one, and I couldn't think of a better person to start off the series of music interviews than Lttle Kng. What is up?
The heat.
The heat is up, and recovery from a big few days of gigging as well.
Yeah, 6 last week. It was a little bit ridiculous. 3 on Sunday.
Yeah, well, 3 on Sunday.
Did 7 hours of music on Sunday.
That is crazy. For context, we're up in the studio. The fans / aircon are very loud, and so we're going to be gritting it out for a little bit, and then we're going to continue the interview down in the kitchen where I make a chicken larb.
Yay.
Which brings me to an important question I forgot to ask you. Coriander gene. Do you have the bad coriander gene?
No, I like coriander.
Oh, thank fuck for that. Could have done without it, but it is pretty essential, and I would have offended many Thai people if I didn't include coriander in the larb, I think.
Love the coriander.
Larb the coriander. Yes, first pun. First pun. All right, we're off. So, I've known Josh for a long time. I can even remember going to orientation day in year 7 and potentially seeing him play music at the music rooms.
Possible.
How old were you when your musical journey started?
My musical journey, I don't remember the inception, but I'm told that at about 2, I started getting keen on the drums. I grew up in church, and so I used to sit next to the drummer who was always playing week in, week out, and I'd just sit on a little chair and basically copycat all his moves. I got my first little drum kit when I was about 3, little electronic toy thing, and then had some drum pads, and yeah, from there it kind of progressed over the years to many different things. But yeah, started off with drums at about 2.
Yeah. And what about in high school? So you had a lot of friends that played amazing music who are still performing and stuff. So tell me about growing up with some of the other Bellingen musos that helped kind of spur you on, and what other musos kind of helped push you in high school in that way?
Yeah, we were totally blessed. Like our age group, probably my year and the year above and the year below. I got to high school, and at that point I spent a few years learning piano and a few years learning bass, and I got to high school. My dad played the guitar, and so he taught me a few chords, and then just started picking it up. And so first it was, we were in a band called Syndicate, and it was terrible. It was like, if you imagine your 11-year-old, 12-year-old son starting a rock band who's never played guitar before, and 6 guys in the band, or 5 guys in the band, in the garage on a Friday afternoon just making an absolute racket. It's like, I don't know, my parents are saints for letting me do that. But yeah, I mean, that started a bit of a love for music. We played lots of heavy stuff, that kind of Rite of Passage, Into Corn and Limp Bizkit, and POD and Seven Dust, that kind of thing. We played a lot of that. But then after a couple of years, probably around year 8 or 9, I got a bit more connected with Will Henderson, who's still playing and producing full time, and also Jack Carty, who has done European tours and American tours, and And then Dan Saddleton, who's also done some pretty incredible gigs, plus a few other guys, Harry and Wade. But yeah, 4 of the 6 in that band, which we started when I was in year 9, are still doing some kind of music as their kind of profession.
I remember that name from Youth Week and school assembly lineups.
Yep.
Some Incubus covers in there potentially.
Better believe it. Yeah. Anti-Gravity, Pardon Me, Drive, of course.
And to name drop for some of those musos, so Jack Carty is going as Jack Carty, or with his band Jack Carty in the Party. Will Henderson, what have we got? We've got Versace Boys. We've got the Milkshakes the Milkshakes is with Michael Harvey, and Gimme Gimme with his very talented sister Esther Henderson, who is also in many amazing projects and bands as well.
Yeah. And Will dabbles on trumpet for a whole bunch of different bands up in Byron and the Northern Rivers as well. Like, he's got his fingers in all of the pies.
Yeah, and I've always had a lot of pride in that, and yeah, it's been cool coming back and seeing that, your style from more of that rock and folk acoustic kind of stuff seeping more into my world. So me and Josh connected to collab, I think maybe 2020.
Yeah,
I'd say. Yeah. And I was like, oh wow, he's writing beats as well and playing drums and doing all the things. And yeah, so what led you to more towards the kind of hip-hop production-y, neo-soul kind of sound that you seem to be gravitating towards more and more?
That's a really good question. For most of my years as an adult, I was playing mostly cover bands, different sorts of things, and just classic kind of cover gigs. And in that time, I definitely played a lot of upbeat, funky music, but I've always just had a thing for guitar, making the guitar sing, big John Mayer fan. And sort of later in life, and more recently, probably the last 4 or 5 years, really into Tom Misch.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of amazing artists, Tom Misch, Sam Wills from the UK, Jordan Rakai, who's sort of Australian, New Zealand, and Lttle Kng, who I just started really gravitating towards their music and their style of music. Not to mention,
3 out of 4 of them are on my interview wish list.
100%. Who isn't? Sam Wills. Probably.
I don't know Sam Wills, but the other 3.
Bit more, hasn't incredible. I'll show you some music later. Incredible artist, but hasn't quite cut into that upper echelon, but still an incredible artist, and they've done collabs and everything.
Yeah,
and then just really leaving kind of the disco funk. I play a lot of Jamiroquai and Michael Jackson and Stevie Wonder kind of songs, and loving the funkiness of that and the groove bass, but just really wanting to play something that sort of suits me a little bit more in my voice and let me express myself. And I think that that's kind of what neo soul is. It's really emotive. It's really about expressing your emotions and telling stories in that space, rather than just singing about partying or
totally.
So I think both on a musical level, the style of music that I was listening to, and I'd always gravitated towards that sort of chill, funky, groove based stuff, and then just as a way of expressing as well.
That's totally, man. And it's funny because I've had a similar journey, but from a completely different angle, where I was producing lots of electronic stuff, and my journey as a producer, I wanted to learn all the technicalities and make all the sounds, and then starting to realize I wanted more musicality, and then just buying a very small controller, and then that leading towards me wanting a more natural sound, and it's kind of with less layers, there's still so much more room to express in terms of emotion and music and feel, and just becoming more melodic in that sense has kind of opened me up to the world of music in general, rather than the world of electronic music. And it is kind of such a nice crossover area where there's elements of hip hop and all other stuff can come into it, but it's just this free expression, and also just how many artists, including us, just going between singing and rapping and just being able to flow through those spaces, and it all kind of work.
100%. And I think there's something to be said too for throwing yourself into that world, and I kind of did that years and years ago now where I always said, oh, I just want to be a live playing musician. I just want to like play and have that organic kind of thing. And never really dabbled in recording or anything. And then one day I was just like, I actually love recording and writing songs and all this sort of stuff. So I started doing that, but yeah, threw myself into all electronic. So you hear some of the earlier stuff that I released under Lttle Kng was super poppy, super electronic. Not a lot of like guitar or live bass, or it's like probably overproduced.
Yeah.
And now, but I learned the skills in that time.
Yeah.
To now kind of strip it back. And I think what you were saying before is spot on. Like when you are getting back to that analog, that more raw sound, it's a little bit more honest and vulnerable, and that's definitely what I'm trying to achieve.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because I had the same feeling about your music. It has become less of that super bright, polished poppy, and then more into the soulful feeling. Like it's been even since we started collaborating, it's been quite a big transition of sounds.
Oh, 100%.
Which is maybe why some of our unfinished collaborations, it's like even a couple of years or 6 months, you can like feel like you're at such a different place with
100%.
where you were back then. And I've had that experience going back my whole life with
also
like
emotionally as well.
like I'm stuff that it's like, oh, it's just that little bit too different from where I'm at now for it still to reflect who I am as a person.
100%. And I think the tricky thing with that is in the songwriting space is like it's nothing to say that the song's even bad. It's just that like right now it's not a great representation, which is such a punishing thing when it comes to recording and releasing music, because if you're not doing it quickly and regularly, you do lose some of that ability to cash in on an idea at the time and kind of roll with it.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good thing too. Like I'm at the space now where I'm releasing regularly, and I feel like the sound's very consistent and curated to what I'm going for. But before it was like, if you're only releasing one a year or one every couple of years or whatever, then there can be chalk and cheese between them.
And consistent with vibe more than tempo, which is something I've only just learnt myself with like being like, okay, it's all right to produce garage and drum and bass, but I still want to tie it together with that musicality. And you're the same, like you write a whole bunch of different tempos, but it still has that overarching, the thing that glues it all together.
Yeah, it's a labor of love. It's kind of nice when you start like, rather than climbing the hill and going, oh man, I don't fucking know what the fuck I'm doing most of the time. And it's like, some of this sounds good and some of it's terrible, and I mix some of it good and I mix some of it bad, and there's no rhyme or reason. It's just like, keep on doing it, and then finally getting to a point where it's consistent and you can achieve a quality sound.
Yeah, totally.
It's so nice. I don't have an imposter syndrome. When I started producing for other people, they'd come in and I'd be just talking shit. Yeah, we can do all these things. I'm like, fuck, I don't know. I guess we can, but then pull it off. And now when I know that, like, yeah, I can do it. It's going to be good.
And that's a big journey overcoming that.
Yeah, that imposter syndrome. Well, and also self-critique as well. Yeah.
Let's have a quick look at the studio so we can turn this cooling on before we turn into a puddle of sweat.
Yeah, it's hot. It's hot.
And we've done well. We're 12 minutes in, so... well, let's just quickly go through your guitars. I'm in selfie mode, so I don't know how well I can see this.
So they're not all here yet. We've just got an American telly, a Mexican telly, which I very rarely use, a Squire bass, which I love, and then it's just a no-name Valencia classical guitar, which I just love playing.
All right,
in here we got all sorts of knickknacks.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, I decided to learn trumpet recently.
Oh, nice.
I'm not very good at all.
Yeah.
That's why it's under a towel on this keyboard. So I kind of like have a pretty low-key setup, but good enough to mix. Apollo Twin down here.
Universal Audio, very reliable brand.
Super reliable. I use my little SP404. Not so much in the studio, mostly when I'm looping out and about when I'm trying to create drum.
So these are good for
stuff.
live, busking and stuff like that.
You can load in your own samples and your presets and whatever, so you can have loops on there. I've actually just recently wiped it. I accidentally did it, so I have to load all the samples back, so I haven't used it for a little bit. Amazing Slate VXS headphones. They are the absolute business in terms of mixing in headphones. Shure SM7B, the quintessential item to have when you've got an Apollo Twin. And then yeah, so it's a nice like range of studio speakers. So I've got these little Rocket 5 inches and the Yamaha 8s, and just gives yeah, a good balance between the two different size speakers. So when you're mixing, you're not like too concentrating on one sound, because they sound sick in the studio, but then to translate onto other speakers, you need to have a bit of a reference. So these are really good to reference.
Yeah, well, I guess the 5s would be good for referencing, because the 6s have always been a bit top heavy for speakers without a sub. So the 5s probably have a bit less of that.
Yeah, and that's great, because
the Yamis are just beautiful, all round, versatile speakers.
Oh, they're absolutely incredible. I mean, I get annoyed sometimes, but I have to mix in the Rockets. But then it's really good because you sit there mixing in mono or in the Rockets for a little bit, and then you go, okay, the mix is sounding good in here. That means it's squashed. There's less frequency to deal with, so you're actually really having to carve space out for all the instrumentation and the vocals and everything. And then you switch the speakers and open it up, and you're like, oh yeah, sounds amazing. So that's a little studio. We've got my buddy Cheney, who's an awesome craftsman, to kind of just cut out. This is a rental. Cut out a bit of a studio space to build in here, and we've kind of got it like soundproofed up here, and a few different bits of album art that I've used over the years that became pictures. And then yeah, it's a bit plainer over here, but that becomes a vocal booth when I'm recording for other people, usually, just to dry out the sound. But yeah, it's fucking hot in here at the moment.
Woo! We'll be back.
Chega tarde devagar, vem só de brincadeira. Noite de lua, deixa brilhar, vem de alma inteira. Hey, you wanna play, baby? I ain't got all day, shitty, cause you never stay. I'm just kidding, run away, say what you
What I'm doing here is this bit's really good, actually. Just a sec.
Qualquer maneira, pronto eu te quero só, livre como amanhã. Não dá bobeira, segue o teu coração, reze e ajoelha. Só vou te esperar, madrugada, calma e serena.
It's a house of innovation here.
I like this.
Lttle Kng crushing it.
Quite
literally. Yeah, that's a go. While you do that, I'll just quickly clean this. So we prepared some chicken. This is literally. Oh, I left the back burner on. That's good. Good kitchen safety. Just literally cooked in water for the meantime. So that's just chicken cooked in water. Because you have the moisture in the larb salad. It's a moist type of salad. And then,
How crushed up do these need to be?
oh, that's good. A little bit of crunch is alright. As long as it's not a whole grain that's gonna
I didn't know I was going to be in a cooking show.
pop. Oh, well, it's a combination. See, the point of the cooking is to. Well, cooking you a meal in your own home is quite disarming, so it means you'll reveal your deepest, darkest secrets, because you're already
romantic.
You're already at home. You're already relaxed. You know, like you've had a couple of beers. It's like who knows what depths of
super sleepy.
what depths of Lttle Kng's soul we're gonna reveal here.
Hit me with some questions. Do you eat cheese?
Cheese, I love cheese. Hence the relentless puns I make.
I haven't had any cheese puns this afternoon.
No, not really. There hasn't been a high frequency of them.
No.
What would be a deep? I don't know. What what's the most cathartic thing you've ever written? That's a hard one.
Yeah, it's not a hard one. Like there's two instances that come to mind. Currently, I'm in a period of mostly sad boy tunes.
Yeah.
A little bit of love lost kind of vibe, and there's a song called "For All," which is
We get a better knife.
all the really like intimate, vulnerable ones come on just the acoustic guitar, and I'm a bit more of a I like to have my tricks up my sleeve and feel a bit more secure, with a bit more production. But these ones came "For All" I wrote a few months after our separation. And it was on New Year's Eve, and I just played a gig. I was home, my kids had their friends over, and I was just like there on my own, and like fully in a terrible state, and like so much so that I was like in a lot of like physical pain from the emotional stuff, and I was just like, fuck it, I am gonna get my guitar out and my amp out from the car. I was technically homeless at the time with 2 kids, and then I wrote this song "For All," and it was just this like really honest, heartfelt like track that pretty much pulled me through the night, to be honest. So yeah, that one to me is like I'll release it one day, probably fairly soon.
Yeah.
But that one to me is like I've only ever played it live once, and it's a pretty intense, like evoking emotion song for me, you know.
Yeah, and some songs.
There you go.
Thank you. Some songs don't end up seeing the light of day because they are too personal, which is totally fine as well.
Yeah.
Because we are writing for ourselves as well.
I mean, I find all songwriting cathartic. But the other one was similar, same relationship, and just reaching a point post-relationship where it didn't feel like there was any point in moving on, and it was just a song. It was called "Right Place, Wrong Time." Just like so many things aligned, but so many things didn't align, and that was definitely another like letting go kind of like feeling okay. Very cathartic, like as I cried my way through writing it.
That's amazing. One of my favourite songs recently has that title, and is very much on that topic. By a rapper called Hilts from London. Yeah, it's funny. I guess everything we write is always reflective of what's going on around us. Unless we decide to go super imaginative, which I love doing, but I haven't done for a while. Like, going full narrative and actually just channeling someone else's story.
I really struggle to do that.
Yeah, have you written much in third person?
Not for a long time. I feel like music for me is just like an expression of like who I am, and like I get people like there's people that write incredible music for entertainment purposes, for like selling record purposes, you know what I mean? Like people who are writing hits to create hits, like the soul of the song or anything. I'm not saying it's not important to them that there's like really good execution and there's emotion in there, but the soul of the song is really about we just want to get this one big kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
And some people write for entertainment, and it's like we want to make people laugh, we want to make people, whatever. Like it can be gimmicky, it can be like still serious, but like you're getting people to think. But for me, like songwriting is the way that I actually like release all the shit that stores up in my psyche, and to put that out in the world, and to say, hey, like, this is kind of my story. Like I think it's a bit of a legacy and a bit of a obviously super cathartic, but also just kind of like, I feel like it's, anyone who tells their story in that way, it's a bit of a gift, and a gift to the world, because someone can go, okay, I can see what so-and-so went through.
Yeah.
And it's good to be entertained, it's good to like listen to the hits and the jams and all that sort of stuff, but it's also good to listen to like shit that people went through, I reckon.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, like the people that are still authentic to themselves and then somehow manage to sell lots of music, like there's few and far between, because to reach even just to reach what is essentially historically uneducated masses with a broad vocabulary, for people who have a broad vocabulary and use a lot of words in their music to reach a mass audience, there's some magic balance that goes on there that is so extremely rare, you know. Like with hip hop, it's like, you know, there's people like Kendrick Lamar is the great example. I think we might have even spoken about this when you interviewed me for the radio show, possibly, of finding that balance between being creative, having creative control, being free with expression, and still hitting that commercial appeal.
I mean, like, you can say about Kendrick that, like, obviously he draws from such a rich history of, like, you know, that Compton scene and all the artists that have come out of LA, and so he draws from all like that nostalgic hip hop stuff, but he makes it his own. But I think the one thing that you could say about him that's like truer than anything is like actually how zero fucks given authentic he is.
Yeah.
And like, to me, that's like pure authenticity is like what the goal is. Because I think then you're really cutting through and you're reaching the people. When you're hitting like your authentic spot of like, I'm revealing, you know, I've been given this gift of music, you know, producing, writing lyrics, all that sort of stuff, and you can be the rawest you. I think it resonates with people. And also, like, it's a fuck you to the systems too, which also fucking resonates.
Yeah, we don't need prefabricated music that has 15 writers.
No.
Where the backing track could be punched out by AI in 5 minutes, you know.
Fuck that.
And I think when like people like this come through, it shows that even people who are uneducated and have mostly mainstream tastes and haven't been shown this other world, they still, at the end of the day, there's part of their human spirit that wants to feel something, you know?
Something real, too. Because it's easy to go and get messed up, or even just like that, you know, that feeling of listening to a song that everyone's singing and that camaraderie, singing along and dancing along to like pop songs. It's great. It's happy. It's beautiful to do in the moment, but I think like where we are at in the world, and especially with music, is like we need people to be actually listening to shit that's authentic and the shit that's really important. It's great to have a good time and get lit and party and whatever. This scissors like Sean.
I'm creative.
Yeah, but it's great to do all that sort of
this
stuff.
at
Like,
home.
I'm definitely not against any of that. I'm all for having a good time, but like actually getting a little bit real with yourself and being like, I want to listen to something that like stirs me up and like makes me feel uncomfortable and challenges what I think about shit, you know?
So I'm going full approximations here. That was approx 2 tablespoons. There's way more lime juice, which is also meant to be 2 tablespoons. How spicy do you like things?
I'm good with spice. Let's make it happen.
Chili flakes. So chili flakes, lime juice, brown sugar. Traditionally, or more commonly in Thailand, palm sugar, but I'll be ethical. I don't really need that much sweet in my stuff anyway. I'm not much of a sweet tooth, so there's no point. When I first made the recipe, I did buy palm sugar specifically for it, and haven't slept properly ever since. Not really, but it's, you know, it's bad if you don't know what. I'll look it up. Rainforest, orangutans, Indo, that shit. Alright, so got these. I've got coriander, mint, and shallots, and this raw glutinous rice, which I will all mix into this bowl because it's big enough. So, yeah, this chicken, see, it's not like overcooked, it's just literally just cooked in water. So it's got this very wet texture, which is what we need. Scrape it all in.
Are you cooking the same thing for everyone?
No, I'm going to give people options. And I mean...
What were my options?
Look, this is...
You just said you were making this for me.
This has just happened to be the fancy meal I had left over from a guest who wanted the other fancy meal. So this is actually probably more nuanced than what I'll cook normally. There's maybe a few more steps.
It looks amazing.
But I don't know. The thing is that you know me and you're my friend. If I ask a complete stranger whose music I love to cook them dinner,
yeah, you gotta give them options.
Will they let me into their home? Will they trust me? I'm looking directly down the lens for that one. Hopefully, I hope so, because I like cooking for people, and I just think it is a good way to interview. Like studio tours are fun as well, and just, you know, random chat in a quiet bar, pub or park is fine, but
I think
why
I'm
not?
gonna steal your idea, actually, to be honest.
Oh, dude, do it, totally. Because it is, like, it's
a great way,
it's
great
disarming,
icebreaker.
yeah, it's totally disarming. And I don't know, I love talking to people when I cook for them and stuff. Like, cooking's one of the only things I can do that with, like cleaning or washing up or whatever. I'm just like, please, leave me alone, let me do my thing.
Yeah,
Cooking's a little bit
something
different.
creative about cooking.
Bit more chili and a bit more fish sauce. I always err on the side of less, because if you've ever had proper, authentic Thai or Vietnamese food or soups, especially in those countries, I've only been to Vietnam, and they love the fish sauce, it's a shock to the system. It's a good flavour, but too much of it is pretty intense. Well, yeah, we're going to intersperse this with some other cuts of us making the song. You'll hear the final version of the song. And yeah, thank you so much to Josh Lttle Kng for inviting me into his house and being my interviewee / test subject.
My pleasure.
And yeah, we're going to enjoy this lovely larb salad sans cabbage, just as it is. And sans palm oil, because big up the orangutan gang. Alright, peace for now.
Cause if you were not divine, I could be yours, you could be mine.
Why complicate? Hey Sean, you already know the answer, get bored. Normal is not romantic, so you're either gonna be a lonely dancer or embrace the frantic. There must be a limit to the crazy antics. Finding a taste of balance in her, I see similar flavors of madness. Could she be my favorite challenge?
Live in attention, all alone with my phone and reception. Look for connection, she the beat that I need for ascension. Little misdirection.